Hi, everyone. This is Rico Figliolini, host of Peachtree Corners Life. I do want to introduce you to our show and our special guest today, all the way from Hawaii, Jennifer Keim. Hey, Jennifer. Thanks for joining us.
Hi,
Hey,
happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
cool. I heard you were on the waters, on the ocean before. Everything
Uh,
okay? Took some good
it's
go
just
good GoPros?
gorgeous.
I'm sure.
It is gorgeous. The whales are active, and I had the chance going yesterday to on an outrigger where we paddle out and we're just right there with the whales. So
That's amazing. Well, and
rainbows.
we'll get into some of that. I mean, some of your artwork is animal related, so we'll talk about that inspiration. But before we get there, let me just introduce our sponsor for the podcast and our corporate sponsor for everything that we do, and that's EV Remodeling. Eli from EV Remodeling lives here, right here in Peachtree Corners. Great guy. He was just featured in one of our issues recently. He's does home renovation, remodeling from design to build. Just a great guy, great family. Check them out. evremodelinginc.com is where he's at. So check him out, and let's just get right into it. Hey, Jennifer.
Okay, great.
So we're going to call you. I mean, I've checked through it, done my research a little bit, so I have some stuff about you. It's amazing what's on the net. You're a fine artist and lifestyle designer,
Yes.
global design brand. In fact, the reason that we're interviewing you is because you're going to be one of 75 artists being showcased at the
Yeah.
Wesleyan Artist Market here in Peachtree Corners, April 28th and 29th. So we're glad that
Yes.
you're going to be there. Um, and you're going to be actually one of the three artists that we're featuring in our print magazine in the upcoming issue. Um,
So
so,
thrilled.
yeah, it's just fantastic. But I want to know a little bit more about you. What
Okay.
makes the artist Jennifer Keim? So tell us a little bit about yourself.
A little bit about myself. Well, there's a lot,
I'm sure.
and it lots of layers. But really, it all started fourth grade, where my parents were really good about having me try new things and see what my niche was. And so they put me in an art camp, and I'm from
Hmm.
Columbus, Georgia, and they
Okay.
put me in an art camp at the museum for a week long. And the instructor said she has something, Jill Chancey Phillips, and she from there on, she's like, keep her in it. She needs to be in the art world, and I can give her private lessons. And so I had private lessons with her all the way through until
Wow.
I went off to school. So she was my mentor, and I mean, she is my
Wow.
special. So
Wow. And interestingly enough, I mean, you're displayed in museums and galleries all over the country. You've been featured on HGTV as well, but
that was
you were also at Columbus Museum, right? How old were you when your art was exhibited there?
well, I mean, I was very young,
Oh, okay.
actually, and yeah, very young. And then there was a moment in high school as well. So
Cool.
for one of the little exhibits, I feel
So,
so long ago though. A lot's happened since then.
I'm sure. What about HGTV? How did that come about? How were you
God,
featured there?
well, I was actually featured twice. Once
Okay.
there was an interior designer in Atlanta, and she commissioned me to do a piece um, to go in her theater room. And then the second time, what, and I can't even pull up in my head what year that was. I think it was probably 2007. And then my most recent one, my Protea, which is
Hmm.
one contour line paintings, it's one continuous line without lifting your pen,
Oh, wow.
were
Okay.
featured through a designer and for the Bargain Mansion show with Tamara
Oh,
Day.
cool. It's good. It's great exposure, I'm sure.
Yeah,
Um,
it's pretty neat.
so the artwork that you've done, I mean, the mediums that you work in, there's several different mediums, it sounds like, that you work in. Watercolor, you work in textiles, you do canvas work. Um, where oils, pastels, where do how do you come about choosing? Or what do you feel most comfortable in expressing your inner artist? What type of medium do you like best to
That's a
work in?
really good question because I feel like every medium has their own personality. So
Mm,
you've got your drawing technique that's, you can do quick gesturals, and then you have your painting where you can just layer. So there's just so many different personalities that happen with when you've got the different mediums, and a lot of times it's just the subject kind of craves a certain medium. So you've got your line drawing, and in certain subjects like the contour line paintings that I do, like just to have the simple shapes of the subject, versus really getting into the layered paint of like a floral that are either like a mountain view, or I don't know, they shall have different personalities that you kind of play off of.
So
And then also,
yeah.
what's that?
No, go ahead.
Well, and one of my main reasons too, where I jump around, like I'll play in oils for a while, and I mean I'm a messy one, so like it's all in my ear, it's all over, and I try to keep it as clean as possible, but it just kind of happens. But with the oils, I love to use the palette knife and work with the coastal scenes and see the layer of the marsh, and just kind of play off of that. But the oils and pastels, after a while, and I didn't realize this until it just kind of helped build it. It was a buildup of episodes that were happening with my body that I realized my body was toxic from playing and being in all the oils and pastels for a long while.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So I would work, it took a year to kind of clean up and not have any more of my episodes, where then it just connected what was the issue, that there was a common ground of the toxins, and I had to then be more aware of my surroundings and how I actually use these materials safely. So the awareness of using these subjects or these mediums I'm better now about keeping it safe.
That's a bit horrible. If it's like someone that loves cats, but is
They're
allergic to cats.
allergic. Yeah, I know.
That would be just bad, right? I
Well,
can't
and
imagine.
I have this really, really nice air purifier now, and I wear gloves when I'm in the oils, just to help one less thing to kind of get into my system.
Sure. So when you're doing a piece, because you do series of pieces, and we'll
Mm-hmm.
show a couple of these things. Um, do you do you sometimes has it happened where you started in a medium, and then you decided that's not the right medium, and you shift and use a different? Or does it once you
Always
decide
playing.
watercolor, you tell me?
I'm always playing and exploring, and I feel like if you're not doing that and you're not challenging yourself, then you're stuck. And
Okay.
but I always like to explore. So I just recently have um, I work with my Off to the Races too, and then some of my animal series
Hmm.
with gouache. So that's basically like an acrylic and a watercolor. If they had a baby, it would be gouache. So you have the opaqueness, but then the transparency that can happen with watercolor, but the opaqueness of acrylic, that's gouache. Yeah, that's gouache
Yeah.
free. Yes, and
Okay. So tell
but
us
I
about the
found
lion. Yeah.
yes, and that's
I
all
mean,
about just layering of color. There's lots of layers.
okay. So
Um,
was this a sketch or was this a final piece?
this
Was
is a
this
final piece,
okay?
and so I start off with like that neutral color to draw it out,
Uh-huh.
and there's nothing forgiving about a water gouache piece. I mean, once you
Yeah.
put a stroke down, it's there. There's no way of lifting or recovering from it. So
Right.
I always start with the eyes, because I feel like if you got to land the eyes, or the piece won't be as impactful. And then I'll put down the base coat,
Uh-huh.
walk away, maybe start another piece until the other one's dry, and start playing, add the color.
So is it the same techniques that you're using that you use here as well?
And so that's the interesting part. So that was the lion was a gouache, and now we're looking at the ostriches, and that's my pastel on wood panel. And
Okay.
this is a drawing medium versus the lion is a painting medium. And
Mm-hmm.
so with this is one of my favorite techniques right now, because it's the vulnerability that happens with the whole process.
Right.
I am dependent on how the resin reacts to the wood in the pastel, and my whole climate's got to be good. My, dust-free
Right.
environment.
Right.
So I draw it on first with the pastel. Also, pastel, once it's touched the wood, like not forgiving, like I've tried to lift it up, but
Hmm.
because of the really deep blues, those always will, you'll see like a ghost line if I had to erase. But I'll do the pastel, and then I will pour the resin. And I don't know if anyone's familiar with resin, but you mix these two concoctions, you
Hmm.
stir, you mix for 3 minutes, and
Hmm.
then you pour it onto the pastel resin or a pastel board. And I have 15 minutes to relieve the bubbles, and then I have to walk away for 3 days.
Wow.
And so,
Okay.
and
Wow.
then the resin, the chemistry that happens most of the time, like I've finished drawing the ostriches with my pastel, and most people would be like, "That's a finished piece," and it is for in that case. But for my process, that's halfway through. So my next step is the resin, and which could change the whole game of this piece. It
You
could
know,
make or break it, basically.
it sounds similar to I interviewed last year. I think it was a an artist that works in pottery, right?
Hmm.
And glazing and using kilns and stuff to fire up.
Hmm.
And it's similar to that. They could be using a color that looks blue, and then once you've done the
Yeah.
process, and you have to really be careful when you're baking, if you will, that you stop it completely, stop the oxygen from
Yep.
allowing further work because the colors will shift to completely
I know.
different colors.
It's I know.
Yeah.
So it's crazy. It is so crazy. And you have to level the board out too, where I mean but I've been working with resin for 21 years.
Okay.
And so I've learned and because I used to build my boards, but now I actually have them built for me and do this nice beveled edge on the
Hmm.
that just kind of shows through once the resin's poured. But
Wow.
you learn these things, like I have to make sure it's really level, because if it's shifted somehow, the pastel that basically melts with the resin will then kind of just bleed through, and then it'll just
Right.
move down in the direction of the gravity.
Oh
um,
wow.
so I've got to learn to manipulate that and make sure it stays up to where it's
Yes.
not sending off to the bottom of the wood
Wow.
panel.
I can't even imagine. You spend the time creating it and then you put the resin on and God forbid something
I
bad
know.
goes.
Yeah.
You just throw it
Well,
out and just start again.
yes, and there was my most recent pour. I did my largest pour of in my whole career, and 8 gallons of resin
Oh my
and 13 pieces. And I always like to kind of challenge myself too. But
God.
it was a big it was a I could have gotten myself in trouble, but um,
They all
the
turned out
naming
okay?
of that.
The
But
all
I did.
13?
I poured it,
Okay.
and it turned out great. But there was one panel that was giving me a fit, and the bubbles just kind of kept coming up and up and up and up, and it was almost like it was just the wood
Yeah.
was drinking the resin, and the way that it was just
Oh,
pushing out all of the air and oxygen and everything from it.
wow.
I
Wow.
finally got it to work, but it gave me a fit. So there's
So,
always it's something going to happen. There's
wow. It
a
almost
risk
sounds
of.
like, yeah, it almost sounds like you have to heat up the wood or do something to the wood to prep it before you do the
What
art,
it
I
needs to
guess.
be like regulated with the temperature.
Yes. Okay.
So
Wow.
there can and the humidity's got to be just right
Wow.
for it to dry and not get tacky.
I'm sure.
And
Um,
no kids or dogs or cats or husbands can come around right after the pour. So
yes. How old are your kids now?
my daughter Jane is 10,
Okay.
and she's in 5th grade, and then my son Charlie is 6 in kindergarten.
All right.
So.
Old enough to know not to put their hands on the artwork as it's
Well,
curing.
they know mommy's pouring, like when the big sign says "Do not open."
Mm, okay. All right. That's like
Yeah.
my handwritten sign on the door that says podcast
Yes.
recording.
Yes.
It's funny. So when just to back step just a little bit, when you started wanting to become an artist in fourth grade or 4 years old, um, you did do that double major as a vet and art. I guess you wanted to become a veterinarian at some point, but microbiology wasn't working for you, I guess. Um, but
He
but
wasn't that
animals,
good.
that was okay. But animals seem to inform a lot of the stuff you do, or at
Yeah.
least wildlife does. Um, and I know that at one point, for example, you went to South Africa, where the exotic animals are. um,
Mm-hmm.
did that inform any of the other work that you've done? I mean, how do you use trips like
Uh,
that, or like Hawaii, where you see the big whales in the ocean? Do you usually
yes.
how do you use that?
Oh man. Well, so already having an intrigue for the animals, wanting to be an exotic vet, save the lions and tigers.
Mm,
I was already drawn to the just the massiveness and just the larger. I mean, these guys are just. I just find them so beautiful and just so
yeah,
intriguing, um, being so large. But then going to South Africa and seeing them like right there, in their how their circle of life works, and then seeing how much bigger they really are in person, right on their
yeah,
trek to go kill the water buffalo and all the things.
yeah,
I get chills. Like it lights my fire. I mean, it livens me up, and I find that even if I'm in a rut, like what's my next move, what's my next
yeah,
series, like what do I want to do? Do I even want to do art anymore? Like when I'm in my moments of, oh, woe is me. Like, what do I do with myself? I find that I just go back to the animals to
okay,
help me break out of that rut, if you call it.
okay, okay,
But
that's cool.
they just make my heart beat differently.
Yeah,
Um,
and
so
I would think that seeing, I've been to Cairo some years back, and seeing the pyramid, seeing the Sphinx,
mm,
way different than seeing pictures. Seeing the
yes,
sand blow up
hmm,
onto the edge of Cairo,
yeah.
edge of the city. I mean, it's just so totally different. So I can imagine why you get inspired when you're right there in the midst of seeing a giraffe. It's different from a zoo. Would imagine being out there on a safari or something like that.
Well, the smells, and
That
the
too.
breeze and
Yeah.
the sounds that happen. I mean, I remember one night we were out in the Lapa area, which was like considered the social spot,
Hmm.
and then all of a sudden the guide said, "Okay, you hear that?" And we're like, "What?" And they're like,
Uh-huh.
"Well, you don't hear anything. The bullfrogs have stopped croaking, which means the hippos are on camp." So the way that the all of
Uh,
the nature talks to each other, I get chills again.
mm,
Like it just really, it's fascinating, absolutely
uh,
fascinating. And then
uh,
just, you're like really when we were out there, and one of my so the lion that you see just recently, his
right.
name is Zero, and I met him in South Africa, and they had just killed a water buffalo and were chowing down, and their bellies were full, and it was just nap
Uh,
time. Yes, so that's right before Zero took a nap, and
mm,
then, and he, I've never seen a lion with dark mane and then a golden red body. I mean, he was just a
uh,
stunner.
uh,
And I actually do not use. So one of the things too is I do not use black in my artwork. The only time I use black is if I'm doing a charcoal portrait,
uh-huh.
or if I'm using my India ink for my fly guy outline. So
Okay.
all of my other pieces that you see with ostriches and then the lion, I use either the deep blues or the really deep maroons and purples and things like that. I feel like there's so many other colors than just black. And if you look at black, like you don't just see a black, you see like a really
Yeah.
deep blue or
Yeah.
really deep red.
Interesting. Interesting. Because life is like that a little bit, right? I mean, the only blacks you see are like in zebras and specific animal stripings and stuff. Life doesn't
See,
always just show
I
you
see
that black.
deep blue in the zebras,
Okay. And yeah.
and then I
Okay.
see like the light purples like in their white and their white and
Okay.
the pink, the light flesh pinks.
Wow.
Um, and that's just where my head goes.
So let me ask you this: when I know writers that they write every day, right? Most writers like to write every day, whether it's 200 words or 1,000 words or 4,000 words. Their feeling is, or even one sentence. I mean, their feeling is they need to write every day. And
Mm-hmm.
sometimes it's garbage, sometimes it's good, sometimes it makes it, or a whole chapter goes away from a book, or a character disappears because it's not working the right
Mm-hmm.
way. Do you find yourself as an artist that you have to sketch all the time, that you have to draw, or do you find yourself doing that even in the most complacent places, like in just somewhere where you might be? Do you do that? Is that something you do?
100%. I mean,
Okay.
there are definitely times that I like have a break and I will go probably 2 days when I'm out of town. But when I'm
Hmm.
at home, I'm painting every day.
Okay.
Even like I've even brought some of my little sketch, just something I can carry with me. But on our trip here, like I'm going to be whipping this out probably somewhere somehow. I'll find a way to maybe sketch the mountains and maybe some greenery and um, but I do try to have it's a release, it's just almost like a creative energy that you have to kind of get out. And then
Right.
there are times that my husband's like, you might need to go downstairs. You might need to go to the studio. Like you get a lot of energy, like go down and release that.
Yes, yes. Before you explode, I guess.
Yes,
Um,
yeah.
so,
You
so
go have
it's,
your moment.
there you go. It's like it is what you need for that tension to go somewhere else into your brushes or something.
Mm-hmm,
Um,
mm-hmm.
when you're in a place like South Africa and you're seeing zero or something or animals like that, do you also take photos? I mean, how do you keep that memory in there to be able to do the art later?
Well, right now I can see them, and I can see that It's almost like you can take it back to the smells too,
Mhm.
um, but in the experience and what, for instance, one of our vehicles broke down in the herd of elephants, and that's how my elephant charge came about because they were coming over, and when they flap their ears like this, it's just
Yeah.
like a threat. Like I'm a big boy. Like you've crossed the boundary. You need to move on. So he
Right.
came over, and that's how my elephant charge came about. If you look, you'll see some of my paintings have the elephant that's with its ears out.
Yes, I saw those. Yeah.
Um, and so there were pictures
Hmm.
taken there. I think I personally was wanting to just be there, be present, and take it all in. I did bring my sketchbook, but I never touched it because I just wanted to be there, right there in the
Okay.
mix of it. I think my
Okay.
next trip, I will definitely want to bring the sketchbook out every day and like maybe do a blind contour with them right then and there. Because I do have books of just blind contours from trips that I've gone
Huh.
on.
Okay.
So they end up being like this small like sketchbook full of just blind contours. And a blind contour is one continuous line without looking at the paper. Um,
Hmm.
and I feel like that sometimes when I'm also in my rut, I will go and do blind contours because it helps you just break that barrier of put intimidation too of putting pen to paper
Hmm.
on a blank piece and just get loose because
So
not
artists
everything's
is
pretty.
right. So artists as well as writers get intimidated by the blank page
For
or blank
sure.
canvas.
For sure. And so, I think that I took pictures for all the Africa pieces for that one, but then I have the memories and the colors in my head, the smells, the things,
Yes,
and
I would
sounds.
think. Yeah, I would think the smells and sounds actually inform a bit about what you do too.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, let's go from wild animals to
Mm-hmm.
something a little smaller, something that takes a little bit more patience, I think. Not my cup of tea. I don't like doing this type of fishing. But
Yes.
the Fly Guys
Yes.
is a series of art that you've done. Tell
Uh-huh.
us the medium you use, why you chose to do this, and how it came about.
The Fly Guys, they came about, and this is so simple, but my husband's grandfather
Mhm.
had this tie box that someone had done these fly tie box for
Oh,
him,
okay.
and it was in my studio. And so when he passed away, Danny got this box, and I thought it was so cool just to have a little piece of Gramps.
Hmm.
And so it was in my studio, and it was late one night because I am naturally a night owl. I like it when the world is quiet. That's my special place. It's when the
Okay.
world is quiet and I'm in the studio and I can just go. And my alarm's not going off to keep me on track and things like that. But I was
Okay.
in the studio and I was looking at them. I thought, God, these are so interesting and they're so tiny. And the art of fly tying I started to do more research on it, and it's incredible. Like there's a specialty and an artwork in those little guys right there of the
Mm-hmm.
of the materials used, and then how they what they catch. I mean, I still have a lot to learn. I still have to go to my buddies who fly fish, and I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
who will we catch with this guy? And have I been true to the art? Am I accurate on my colors? I mean, I want to be able to speak to the people, the niche that really loves fly fishing.
Right.
So
Right. So these are
I have a lot
actually,
to learn though.
but these are actually fly bait. Fly. How would
Fly
you
lures.
fly lures? Sorry.
Mm-hmm.
So these are actual real ones that you've created art from.
Yes, but they
Okay.
are tiny, and
Yes, that's true.
those pieces are 9 by 9 each.
Oh,
So, and I
really?
tear the
Okay.
paper down so you have like the deckled edge, and then I use
Wow.
wash and acrylic ink, and then I use my India ink pen to have that black outline detail.
Wow. That is cool. Do you, I know you sell them individually, but have you ever sold them as a group like that?
Yes. So this is what I love about these guys, all the personalities that happen with
Mm-hmm.
the fly guys.
Yeah.
So I have sold them unframed, and then the client has gone to do their own framing. Or I actually, one of my favorites is I sew them onto a linen, a 12 by
Yeah.
12 by 3 linen. So to me
Okay.
it's giving uh, feeling a little closer to the art of the
Mm-hmm.
fly tie.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll sew them onto the linen
Yeah.
and put them in a acrylic shadow box, and so they can either sit tabletop or hang. And I've loved to see people how they have fun with either just one
Right.
solo or do a group
Right.
of 9 or a group of 12 or a group of 3 or 2. Like they just have fun with the colors and the characters and creating a gallery wall of them.
I guess the sad part is with art like this is that when you sell it, you don't always see, you almost never see, I guess, where it actually ends up,
Mm-hmm.
what room, what wall
Mm-hmm.
that it lives in. So that's kind of sad when you sell because all your work is original work, and
All
a lot of
original.
it's right. It's all custom one-offs.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
so does that ever do you ever think about, wow, I wonder where that is? Um, does that ever come into your mind
For sure.
like
No,
that?
definitely. I like to, and if I can, there's some shows that, you don't know who ended up buying the piece, and then you
Hmm.
just wonder where it
Okay.
is. And so you
Yeah.
have that question, but then there are some that I actually have a chance to see them hanging, and that's really rewarding to be able to see them kind of shine in their new home.
Right.
So I do have some pictures that clients have sent over that it is really rewarding to see that.
That's cool. So
Or if
let's
I go to their house, see it.
yeah, I mean, or if you end up doing an exhibition or a gallery, I guess
Mm-hmm.
it's kind of neat to see what people walk when you walk around to hear what people might be saying about the art piece on that wall or being hung. Um, you
That
did
makes me
learn.
nervous.
Does that make you nervous? Yes, I know.
Yes.
No artist likes to hear the reviews.
And- well, listen, and I've been in the critique world for you have to have a certain thickness um, that happens
Yeah,
with being in the art world. I mean,
yeah,
just take it for what it is, great,
right,
and then move on if you don't
right,
like what you hear, or
right,
if it
right.
hurts.
Um, yeah, that's true. I'm sure. It's never, everyone, no, some people don't like fantasy, but they like YA novels. So it's like that, right? So
Hmm.
artwork is like that. Some people like sculptures versus paintings.
Yes,
It just depends.
yes.
Um, you've done, we touched upon a little bit about textile work that you've done. textile high art. It's there's two thoughts of it, right? You could do textile painting or textile work that's high art, or at the point that that particular textile has a function, then it becomes a craft, right? Um, an interesting way of looking at something like that. But you've done textile work, I mean, pillows and fabrics and different things, right?
Well, I'm actually
Do
wearing one of mine now, my eyelash scarf.
eyelash
That
scarf,
is,
okay.
so and one thing that's fun about this one here is
Uh-huh.
I'm at right today. I'm wearing it as a kind of a scarf to just actually add flair and color, but then
Okay.
to also cover my shoulders. It was kind of chilly in the lobby earlier,
Uh-huh.
but I've been wearing this as a beach cover up too. So you
Okay.
have it
Neat.
with the air dry and then it just the flow. But so the textiles all started with when I was pregnant with my daughter Jane, and when
Mm-hmm.
she was and she's 10 now. But I couldn't get in the oils and the pastels, and I needed to have an outlet. I needed to figure out what it was. What was I going to do?
Right.
I had to create, and but I started to play around with this material, the paint, the textile
Mm-hmm.
paint, and then it just started off. I started giving them as gifts, as like little tea towels or whatnot. And then I think I did like
Okay.
some onesies and painted her some cute onesies, um, and it just evolved. It just led to um, sarongs, pillows, cocktail napkins,
Right. So let me.
scarves.
So are those also one of a kind, or do you design it
Yeah.
and then have it
No, I
produced?
hand paint every single one of them.
Same. So cocktail napkins, if there's 24 of them, you're hand
Hand
painting
paint
24?
every single one of them. Yes.
Yeah. All
And
right.
it's, but what I found, because I do this leopard, with a leopard pattern, and,
Uh-huh.
some people doodle or whatnot. It ends up
Right.
being my think space. Like that's my
Okay.
thinking time.
Okay.
That's something about that repetitive
Yes.
motion. I have
Hmm.
some of my best ideas when I'm doing those. So it's
You
so
see
odd.
different, that's funny. You probably see different shapes in them as you're creating those shapes or
Hmm.
patterns and stuff.
Well, they could come across as a leopard or they could come across as a horseshoe. So
That's
depending
amazing.
on what region you're in, you're
Right,
like,
right, right. As you're doing it, that's interesting.
yes.
It's like I hear writers say that, yeah, my character took me there. I didn't even know I was going there.
Yeah,
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 so
right.
it's,
Right.
art's like that. Yeah.
But in the one thing this material is very loyal to me, and I've learned to I have to iron every one to set it.
Okay.
However, if you look at my studio clothes, you might see that it probably doesn't have to be ironed all the time, but there are certain color because I have very colorful studio clothes. But I have to iron every piece to set the ink, the paint into the textile, and
Oh,
not
okay.
every textile reacts the same. So I have to learn how to either manipulate it or to where if
Right,
if you put down the paint it will expand, and if it does expand, like I have to make
right,
sure that my strokes are really smaller so where it doesn't end up overtaking
right.
the fabric. So you kind of learn the fabric, and then you just kind of get in sync with each other.
Just amazing. Every form of art has its own little details that people don't even think about that aren't familiar with the process of the art and what you have to think about and what goes into it. If they knew, then they could see the hard work and the inspiration that you got out of it.
And I think that's why right now I'm in the middle of trying to tell that story for the pastel and wood panel,
Mhm.
and because when you first see the piece, you probably don't even understand what's happening, like
Yeah,
what the process was prior, and there's about 20 steps before the final piece. And so I
yeah,
have a videographer helping me tell the story of
excellent,
that,
excellent.
and we're working on that
I
together
was going
now.
to say you have to do video on that. They have to be able to
Hmm.
see the drama and the tension of like I
Hmm.
did this beautiful piece. Now I'm going to pour this resin on it. It better turn out right.
Yeah, right, right. And every time, still, like I use the
Yeah,
same pastels, I use the same resin, but every batch is different. Every wood's different.
yeah,
Every like environment, temperature, all of it's so different that
yeah.
I'm still surprised with this technique to the day. And certain colors just disappear. Certain colors blend, and that's the thing with pastels. It's all about a layering technique. So
Right.
you can't blend pastels. It's a layering,
Hmm.
and so that when it with the resin, it just melts.
Jeez. Well, we could go on and on about this.
I know.
Art is a tough world. It's tough to be creative, and it's actually tough to produce it, apparently. Um, but you're going to be showing your work at the Wesleyan's Artist Market. That's going to be the end of April,
Yes.
around April 28th and 29th, Friday and Saturday. 75 other professionals from around the Southeast will be there, here in Peachtree Corners. Do you want to share with us in brief what type of art? I mean, some of the stuff that we've seen already during this podcast. What other stuff are you bringing? What can people expect?
Well, first off, I love this. This is such a great show. I mean, really, last year was my first year joining, and I was blown away. It's a great collection of artists,
Hmm.
a lot of creativity under one roof, fantastic people, um, all around. I've been the campus, like just the vibe there is just all very happy and just a
Yeah.
good heart, big hearts. And you'll I have a collections of the animals, and then I'll have the fly guys, and then I'll
Hmm.
have the off to the races, which are like my three go-tos.
Right.
And so I'll have a variety of those, all new works, and I'll
Okay.
have some of my newest pastel and wood panel off to the races, which I've just did for the first time about 3 weeks ago. So that was a fun experience because I'm used to painting those, and that so I use the drawing pastel and then the resin. So I'll have a variety, all new
Cool.
works though, all hand painted, all original. But I will probably have my wallpaper, which is this my only thing I've ever printed. I have my fly guy wallpaper and my animal wallpaper that it
Oh,
is
cool.
just now. I've just finished. Now I just
Huh.
am trying to figure out how to talk about it and promote it. So,
Right. 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 Wow. It's good to have
and if I
merch.
maybe I'll send you a picture of it. Maybe you can add it in. It's so neat. It's
Yes,
just,
I'm waiting. Yeah, I'm waiting for some high res photography from you.
and I got that
Uh,
coming for you.
Excellent. So, if people want to follow you, where can they find out more information about Jennifer Keim?
Okay, they can find more information on my website, which is www.jkeim.com, and that's JKEIM.
Okay,
Or you could find me on my Instagram, which is JKeim Studio,
cool.
and um,
And Facebook, I think.
yes, on Facebook
Cool.
too. Yeah.
Great. Check her out. Lots of stuff on there. I was just on there. I saw her dive with her GoPro, not dive herself, but into the waters, the blue waters of Hawaii. But
Yes.
you can follow Jennifer on social media and see what's up with her and how and what she does and stuff. It's kind of interesting to see the behind the scenes of what an artist has to do to create the stuff they bring to these shows, the art. Um, so check that out. Check her out. To find out a little bit more about with the Wesleyan Artist Market, go to just search Wesleyan Artist Market, Google that, and you'll find the place. And it's being held at the Wesleyan School, which is a private prep school here in Peachtree Corners. Great school, and a great supporter of ours as well. And we're a sponsor of the Wesleyan Artist Market. So great stuff, great artists. Jennifer, this was a pleasure talking
Oh,
with you about
thank
art.
I've
And
really
what,
enjoyed having this time with you.
yeah, no, same here. I appreciate you spending the time, especially from Hawaii. So, and the Wi-Fi seemed to work out just fine. So,
Oh, good.
so we're all good.
And no
So,
kids barged in wanting to go to the pool.
and my cats didn't show up on my desk either this time. So,
Yes.
so hang in
Uh,
there for a minute while I just sign off.
okay, great.
Everyone, thanks again for being with us. This is Peachtree Corners Life. My name is Rico Figliolini. You can find out more about our publications at livinginpeachtreecorners.com, these podcasts, and we'll be sharing 3 artist profiles in the upcoming issue of the, I think it's our April-May issue of Peachtree Corners magazine, and Jennifer will be one of them. So check that out and have a great week.